Next up on the In the Money Players podcast, or as a standalone video, if you're watching on the In the Money Media YouTube channel, we're going to take a look into the data of the Stephen Foster Stakes from Saturday. Eventually, we're going to get around to the question that's going to be on the thumbnail of the YouTube video about sovereignty. But I think it would be burying the lead not to start by talking about magnitude. Adam Mills of Total Performance Data is here. Adam, hello to you. And what did you think about Magnitude's performance in the Stephen Foster on Saturday?
Well, look, we'll come to sovereignty in a moment, but we should really give a lot of credit to Magnitude. He's won his last 4 starts. Now, unfortunately, the situation in March in the Middle East meant we didn't get the data. We weren't able to use the GPS system for Dubai World Cup night. But ignore all of that fact. This is a horse who's beaten Forever Young on the dirt. Now, that's a serious achievement to beat Forever Young under whatever circumstances and whatever you think of the Saudi Cup, Dubai World Cup double, everything else. Magnitude beat Forever Young. So on the bare form, he was probably a little bit underestimated because we hadn't seen him since. Really good ride by Jose Ortiz. He controls the pace, keeps it nice and even. We've got a finishing speed between 96, 97. And the key point here, when you look at the data in front of you on the screen, top speed ranked 5th. So his top speed on the pure speedometer, 39.3, 5th of 5. Now, you wouldn't necessarily expect that for a horse that got to the front, and there was that incident at the start as well with the starting gate. It was a little bit messy, but what I really liked about Magnitude is when they come around the turn and you're looking and you're thinking, oh, he's in trouble here. Here comes Sovereignty. It looks like they're moving. Baeza is starting to close, and then Magnitude goes again, quickens up. Closing furlongs are really good, and what I particularly like is having dominated the race for most of the opening mile, he then finds a race best 12.10 seconds for the penultimate furlong. This is a horse who's come off that turn and then he's quickened again. He's found something extra. That's what's won the race. The question really, I think, for Magnitude and for those like myself that are coming around to him is kind of what happens if he gets in a race and something really takes him on? Now, Willie Dees was in the race on Saturday. I don't think anyone really expected Willie Dees to be a grade 1 performer at this stage of his career. So we haven't really seen what happens when something goes alongside and tries to take him on from a much earlier stage. But what this horse does is he gets out in front. He's got a really long stride. You can see there, longest stride in the field at an average of 24.7 feet. But this horse just gets in front and then he finds something extra for his jockey when he really needs it. You know, he's won his last 4 starts. That's before we go riding this race off. If Sovereignty hadn't run in this race, you'd look at this and go, well, Magnitude's confirmed his Dubai form. So he's got to be a player in the bigger races later in the year.
I'm a little skeptical only for the reason you said. I mean, yes, did we really expect Willie Dees to be able to hang around to the end? No, but I did expect them to show speed at least. Instead, I mean, for me, it was the easiest of trips for Magnitude. It was run to be a perfect time trial, and a perfect time trial it was, a 1:15 on the Beyer speed figure scale. Clearly a very, very serious horse. I was curious to see how that Dubai form would translate. Sometimes it translates beautifully, not always. In this case, it certainly did. He's a serious horse. He's a major player, but there's just that little something holding me back. But I will say this data does underline the fact that he is looking like a superior animal at this point, and maybe, just maybe, these comparisons to greats like Gunrunner are not totally out of pocket. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I don't want to. I'm certainly not going to put on record and on the internet that I think he's as good as Gunrunner because I'm not sure he is.
Too early.
What I do think is he's significantly better than he was last year. He's significantly better than he was at the start of the year. I think the battle in Dubai showed that actually he can find, and although this race was definitely run to suit a front runner, he also found in the closing stage. That's what I like. This wasn't a case of just a really good ride and everything else couldn't get to him. They started to get to him and then he went again. So I like horses that can quicken more than once. He did that several times, sort of furlong per furlong. So there is ability there. But yeah, I'm a little like you that there's part of me wonders like, well, what if he ran in something like the Breeders' Cup and he got a soft lead? But the flip side is the chances are surely at some point the other connections are going to work out. Well, what if we just go and eyeball this fella? What does he do then? If he gets a soft lead in the Breeders' Cup, he'll win, but it's a set scenario, and we've yet to see Magnitude really do it the hard way.
You mentioned about the finishing speed. We talked about that at some length the last time you were on the show. Finishing speed for a front-running win on dirt being around 96. What does that tell us about, in theory anyway, the sectionals, the fractions that were up to that point? Does that suggest an even pace? what does it tell us?
On the dirt, that would suggest a relatively even pace. Now, most dirt races, you're looking at finishing speeds somewhere between 93 and 97. It's a bit of a generic phrase, and you shouldn't really use it because things like the Oaklawn handicap was closer to 98. But the reason we look at it in the dirt is because early position is so important. It doesn't develop in the way that a turf race does. So 96 is, for a grade 1 dirt race, is relatively set and standard. They're nice and safe. It's possible for a horse to make all as magnitude showed. It also means that those further behind are going to rely on the leader starting to come back to them. Whereas once we start getting down to sort of 92, 93, you're getting a much more significant drop. And that generally means those in front have gone too fast and they're slowing down. I thought if you look at the easiest way to think of this, if you look at the last 10 times for the Stephen Foster Stakes, this fits in the middle. It's not as fast as Mindframe a year ago. It's a little bit faster than a couple of others. We had a sloppy track. It's never an exact science comparing one year to the other. But it's kind of, if it'd just been magnitude by himself and you didn't know the names of the other horses, you'd say, yeah, that was a good Stephen Foster. But you wouldn't be out there going, oh, this was amazing. This form will never be overturned.
It's so interesting how looking at this data and this lens that you guys offer can be so different than looking at traditional speed figures, but I love it. I just think it's another way to have these conversations. And one of the big conversations has been about sovereignty, and I'll switch to the tab that we have on him. Now, it seems like I'm seeing mostly disappointment, and I get it. I mean, this was a horse who was clearly flat. This was a horse who many, including you, including me, were expecting very big things from. We did not see those big things. However, I am tempted to say, hey, here's a horse, as a 4-year-old. He still only had the 2 runs. He's run a 108 on the Beyer scale, followed by a 106. Now, granted, the 106 in the Foster, I think by any reasonable measure, is disappointing. If he runs that 108 off the bench, he's supposed to get back to that 110, at least, even if he's not going to make it all the way to the big number that Magnitude ran. So I want to say that in social media terms anyway, that a lot of the hate maybe has gone too far, and maybe this is a horse who it just wasn't his day for whatever reason, and we'll see what Bill Mott does with him from here. It feels too early to give up, but I thought it was very interesting when we were texting privately that the data maybe suggests that there is an issue here. Talk us through what you found. Tell us what you think might be going on with sovereignty.
So if you read totalperformancedata.com blog, you'll find a preview of the Stephen Foster. Now, I got certain things right. White Abarrio had no business being in this race, wasn't going to win it. Got that right. I did put in writing Magnitude could steal this from the front in a certain set of circumstances. I duly then ignored my own advice and decided, no, Sovereignty's going to win this, definitely. Sovereignty to beat Baeza, and the exacta is the play here. This is how it's going to pan out. And as they rounded the far turn, I was thinking, oh, here we go. Sovereignty's coming. He's getting there. He's quickening up. The gap's closing. And the difference between Sovereignty now and Sovereignty a year ago is the amount of distance Sovereignty can cover at top speed. And I think that's the key in the latter half of the race. I found this graphic and I put it together because I wanted to try and illustrate the difference. This is late speed. So we measure the average speed for a horse over the final 2 furlongs of a race. And we take that from a variety of different races. And I've just purely looked at the races that he's run at Churchill Downs and Saratoga because I can give a good comparison of them. And as you can see from 2025, we were getting late speed figures of 37.7 in the Belmont, really good figure in the Travers. He had a decent enough figure either side. And then you get to this figure on the right-hand side, which is the slowest figure, and that's Saturday's run in the Stephen Foster, 35.1. So that's a drop of 2.6 miles an hour. Nearly, we're getting close, sort of 7-8%. That's a significant drop in the space of a year. And I think when you look back at the Churchill Downs race in the Kentucky Derby, Sovereignty, if we go 1 furlong to the next, he quickened 3 times. On Saturday, he only did it once. And I just wonder with this horse, we can't put a number on the will to win or the attitude. And look, he was a phenomenal 3-year-old, absolutely phenomenal. And we're all judging him by this huge number that's up here. And if he's down here, we're thinking, well, that's still, in normal terms, it'd be fantastic. You'd love to own him. But in race terms, compared to what he achieved last year, he's down. He's not finishing the same. I think there's 2 ways to look at it. The positive is he's reversed the form of White Abarrio. but that Oaklawn handicap was entirely run to suit White Abarrio. It was really slow, high finishing speed. And White Abarrio, as he found on Saturday, he can't do it when something goes hard in front or when something makes the gallop relentless and continuous, because he needs to sprint. He can turn his wheels quickly, but he can't do it for a long period. So Sovereignty's reversed that, as you might expect. But my biggest concern is if you watch Sovereignty compared to Baeza. Now, Baeza is the kind of horse who, if you like supporting him and you keep putting your money down, you must be hammering your head against the wall, going, oh, just break on terms. Come on, you must have learnt by now. Get out the gate. But he finishes really well, as we saw on Saturday. He ran through for second. He took nearly a second out of Sovereignty in the last 3 furlongs. Now, admittedly, he was further back, but a year ago, there's no way Baeza would have made up that kind of time with Sovereignty, and he's doing so. I don't think Baeza has improved significantly. I think Sovereignty has taken a slight step backwards. And the final point I'd make on him is I don't think he's relaxing in the same way. We look at their average stride frequency, the number of strides per second they take. He's got a very similar figure to Magnitude. But the minimum stride frequency is different. Magnitude drops his stride frequency down to a low of 2.18. Sovereignty only drops to 2.23. Now, you might think, geez, Adam, 0.05 strides, does that make a difference? Well, over 1 stride, no. But if you imagine the average furlong's taking 12 seconds, that means every 2 furlongs, Sovereignty's got to put in an extra stride just to keep and maintain the gallop with Magnitude. Over the course of a race, that's 5 or 6 strides. That's quite a big advantage to give to a Grade 1 winner like Magnitude. I think Sovereignty still has the ability, but for whatever reason, he's not finishing the races in the same way that he was a year ago. And where some of the other 4-year-olds have got stronger, he hasn't. He may, who knows, but we can't say from the data that he's the same horse he was a year ago.
Visually, he looked to be running in spots. Does the data bear that hypothesis out at all?
It does to a certain degree. In terms of, if we look at his sort of furlong splits, they're pretty consistent, as the pace was pretty consistent down the back stretch. Now, he's the fastest horse in furlong 6 and 7, so he is gaining. But the problem is that he goes from being the fastest horse in the 7th furlong, straight away he's down to 3rd in the 8th furlong, and in the last furlong he's 3rd as well. And if you look purely at the difference between what he achieves and what Magnitude achieves, Magnitude has made all of the running to that point, and yet he's still found well over half a second on Sovereignty in that final quarter of a mile. My concern would also be when you look at the stride frequency and you look at the average stride frequency furlong per furlong, Sovereignty, if I read out to you so we'll start in the 5th furlong, 2.25, 6th furlong, 2.27, 7th furlong, 2.28, 8th furlong, 2.27, and then in that final furlong, all the way down to 2.16. Both Baeza and Magnitude are going much faster. And it's almost like Sovereignty goes, oh, no, I'm done. I don't know. I can't. One of the things that data can't do is speak horse. So he can't say to Sovereignty, you feeling all right, buddy? Something wrong? We're on to something different? I'm not sure what the answer is. I'm sure they're working really hard on it. But at the moment, he is not the same horse that he was last year, and the data would support that.
We'll see what happens. He's certainly in the right hands to rebound. I'll be curious to see if Belmont gives him a break and reboots, or if they just press on in Saratoga. He was such a talented 3-year-old. Hopefully that potential is there for him to develop at 4. I think maybe some of the cynicism, and I'm sure if you're listening on the audio side, I'll probably have spoken about this with Nick Tamaro in the previous segment of the show. You can find that elsewhere on the YouTube channel. I think some of the cynicism about him is because of the unusual way he was campaigned, skipping the Preakness. I think that hurt a lot of horse players' feelings, thinking that they had a chance to see a Triple Crown winner. So I think there's plenty of skepticism when theoretically the plan for being lighter on him back then was so we'd have him still being strong now. Obviously, that hasn't worked out, but it doesn't mean that the Sovereignty we see in the second half of the season can't improve, but it does sound like there's something, maybe even something mechanical, the data is suggesting going on there. Adam, really appreciate you on what I know is a very busy week, finding 15 minutes to come on the show and chat with us today, and I hope we'll have an opportunity to reach out soon during some of these big races during upcoming Saratoga and Del Mar.
I'm sure we will. Thanks, Peter.
Well, thank Adam one more time. Our friends at Total Performance Data. Go to totalperformancedata.com. Did I get the URL right?
Yep, that's right. That's the one.
You can learn much more about the product there. I want to do a few other thank yous. Our friends at 10 Strike Racing. Looking forward to getting to hang out with some of our friends from the 10 Strike Partnership up in Saratoga, where I know a lot of them will be. Speaking of Saratoga, our charity partner, Therapeutic Horses of Saratoga. They do great work helping humans and horses, and we'll get to see Kim Weir and the rest of that team very, very soon. Most of all, though, I want to thank all of you for listening, for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the In the Money Media YouTube channel and the In the Money Players podcast, wherever you get your pods. If you're online on the YouTube channel, drop us a comment as well. What do you think's going on with Sovereignty? Have we seen the best of him? Will he have a signature effort, a big prize by his name before 2026 is over? Please let us know what you think. We're going to leave it here. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. May you win all your photos.